Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, as we are doing the Showcase of the Independents here in January of 23, when I look at pro wrestling today, there's the three big companies. We got WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, we have New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we have All Elite Wrestling, AEW. If you look at the number of matches that any company puts on, those are the three by far number one. They're all over 1,000 matches. So in 2022, AEW with the Ring of Honor stuff have put on 1,494 matches. WWE with NXT put on 1,425 matches. New Japan Pro Wrestling put on 1,128 matches. Game Changer Wrestling is fourth with 739. Fifth is Impact Wrestling at 474. So you can see the big difference when it comes to the number of shows, number of matches. Today, as we work on the Showcase of the Independents, next up is House of Glory. House of Glory put on 66 matches in 2022, 52 men matches, and 14 women's matches. At the end of the year, the House of Glory World Heavyweight Champion is Jacob Fatu. Yes, he is the cousin to the Usos and Roman Reigns. The House of Glory Crown Jewel Champion is Charles Mason. Yeah. He is an evil little bastard, I guess some people would call him. But yeah, his character he plays on the Indies is pretty stout. He's very mobbish kind of guy, and he does this not only in House of Glory, but in Jersey Championship Wrestling, in LA Fights, in Game Changer Wrestling, and some other companies that I've seen him in. The House of Glory are also, if you look at the letters, House of Glory, HOG. House of Glory Cruiserweight Champion, Mighty Monte. The House of Glory Tag Team Champions are the main event, J-Line and Midas Black. They wrestle all over the Northeast, Beyond Wrestling, Limitless Wrestling. They actually beat the Briscoes for the House of Glory tag titles. The House of Glory Women's Champion is Violetta. House of Glory has been around since 2012. They're mainly in the New York area, Ridgewood, New York to be exact. They are owned by the Amazing Red and Brian XL, both accomplished pro wrestlers in their day. Brian XL, he wrestled for 24 years. He was trained by Mikey Whipwreck. And then Amazing Red wrestled in Impact Wrestling TNA. He's former TNA TNA X Division champion. He actually still is active somewhat. He wrestled 25 years. He was also trained by Mikey Whipwreck. So both these guys are accomplished wrestlers. They have a company that, again, they don't put on a lot of shows a year, but they put on great shows. So I want to run down the best matches of 2022 for House of Glory. House of Glory can be found on Fight TV. I believe it is part of the Fight Plus as well, which is a great deal. $50. You get Game Changer, I believe House of Glory, Black Label Pro, and among others. It's part of one of the, that's $50 for a year, $5 a month. And if you sign up for Fight TV and you create a new login, just need a new email address, go to Gmail and create one. When you sign up for it, you actually get that $50 back in credits for signing up for Fight Plus. And I know this because I just did it for the new year. But yeah, so it's probably the best deal in wrestling. Alright. We're going to run down these matches. I've been doing the top 22 matches. There are 21 matches that are 3.5 star or above. All these star ratings are star ratings that I personally have done. In 2022, I star rated over 8,000 matches. In 2021, over 8,000 matches. Between 2019 and 2020, over 10,000 matches. So anytime I talk about a star rating on this channel, it's stuff I personally have star rated. My star ratings go from 0 to 5. The best of the best matches, if you look at some other star ratings, the best match in the world was the 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute match between Omega and Okada. I give it 5 star. The Ospreay Omega match from this year's Wrestle Kingdom, I've saw people online giving it 6 1/4. I give it 5. 5 is the highest. So these matches are 0 to 5. So 3.5. 3 3/4, 4, 4 1/4, and there's a 4.5. Alright, so the first of the 3.5 star matches, which there are 11 of them. The first one came from House of Glory Genesis, September 24th. It was for the House of Glory World Tag Team Championships. It was the champions at the time, the Briscoes, Jay and Mark Briscoe, them boys, versus the Dark Order, Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. Yes, the Dark Order of, at the time, AEW. I know Evil Uno, I think Stu and Evil both have left AEW at this point in time. But the Briscoes won that match. Mark and Jay, I give it 3.5. Next up, from the same show, Genesis, September 24th, House of Glory Crown Jewel Championship. We had Charles Mason versus Kim Broadway in a ladder match. Charles Mason got the victory on this one. I gave it 3.5. From the High Intensity show, so the next 4 matches will come out of High Intensity. We had a House of Glory Suicide 6-Way Championship match. We had Mankila versus Brian XL versus Buddy Matthews versus Grim Reaper versus Casey Navarro versus Noah Catano. Mankita got the victory. I gave it 3.5. This was a wild ass match. Just the people that are in it. And we all know Buddy Matthews, House of Black, and AEW. Grim Reaper, knowing him from Game Changer Wrestling, always got a reefer in his mouth. Casey Navarro is actually the Warrior Wrestling Champion. At this point, he was the House of Glory Suicide 6-Way Champion. Mankita got the victory on that one. Next up, we had, from same High Intensity 9, August 28th, we had a tag team match. We had Amazing Red teaming up with Jacob Fatu versus 2 members of the House of Black, Brody King and Malachi Black. Amazing Red and Jacob Fatu get the victory by a disqualification. And I ended up giving this match 3.5. Typically, matches that end in DQ, I don't give that high of a star rating to, but this one was damn good. And just Fatu and Amazing Red, what they can do in a ring. We know how talented Brody King is and Malachi Black. These 4 guys just... I would love to see these 4 guys go at it again in a no DQ match just to see how great that match could be. Also from the High Intensity 9 show, the House of Glory Crown Jewel Champion Charles Mason versus the Bad Boy Joey Janela. Joey Janela got the victory, Charles Mason got the victory over Joey Janela. I gave it 3.5. Next up, very interesting match. We had Eddie Kingston. We all know Eddie Kingston from AEW and from Ring of Honor back in the day. Just that street fighting mentality, bad boy kind of, I'm going to go kick your ass kind of guy, versus Marufuji. Nachi Marufuji from Pro Wrestling Noah from New Japan at one point. Marufuji did take a tour of the U.S. Styles make fights. This match was 2 different styles. Marufuji and Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston didn't get the victory. I give it 3.5. Next up, actually 2 top stars of House of Glory. This came from Holy Grail, May 27th. We had Loki versus ACH. Loki has really made a name for himself in pro wrestling. Kind of his new gimmick is more of that mafia kind of hitman kind of gimmick. You see it wherever he goes now. Low-key getting the victory here Low-key getting the victory here. I give it 3.5 over ACH. Next on the list, we had from Salvation, March 11th, House of Glory Crown Jewel Championship. At the time, Low-key was a Crown Jewel Champion versus Biff Busick. Low-key got the victory there over Biff Busick. I give it 3.5. From Tribulations on April 15th, House of Glory Cruiserweight Champion in a 6-way. We had Casey Navarro versus the champion Amazing Red versus Encore versus Mentikilia versus Michael Fain versus Noah Catano. We had Casey Navarro getting the victory here in that 6-way scramble match in a 3.5-star match. On December 17th, Revelations, House of Glory Crown Jewel Championship on the line. Champion Charles Mason versus Lindsay Dorada. Charles Mason, again, like I described him earlier, this evil kind of mafia kind of killer kind of guy versus Lindsay Dorada, the go-lucky, happy, jumping around, lucha libre style. Charles Mason got the victory here. I gave it 3.5, but it was a really good match. I enjoyed it a lot. Just the different styles there. Next up, from Revelations, December 12th, the House of Glory World Heavyweight Title match. We had champion Jacob Fatu versus making his House of Glory debut, Nick Aldis. This match, I was actually expecting more from it, but it was still really, really good. Jacob Fatu beating Nick Aldis. I was actually shocked with that outcome. I thought Nick Aldis was going to get the victory and become champion. He left the NWA over issues, from what I've gathered, with Billy Corgan. I like to see Nick Aldis end up EW. I could see him in NXT. I think he would be good, and maybe come up with Cody and do stuff with Cody on the main roster eventually. I guess him and Cody had some battles back in All In, and then at NWA 70. Maybe even create a faction with Cody. But yeah, Jacob Fatu getting the victory here. If you've not seen Jacob Fatu, you need to go find something Jacob Fatu. Either on Fight with House of Glory, on Pro Wrestling TV, on MLW. But Jacob Fatu, in my opinion, he is a better talent in the ring than Solo Sikoa, who's his cousin. He is the Usos plus Umaga plus doing aerial stuff, basically. He's got the body type of Umaga was, like his Uncle Eddie, but he just does moonsaults and all this. He's actually, I think he's more talented than, equal talented to Jey Uso, so let's go with that. I would say, if he ever came to WWE and got part of the bloodline, yeah, he'd fit right in. He's uber freaking talented. He'd be a great Intercontinental Champion in WWE. Next up, from High Intensity 9, August 28th, we had Loki versus Bandito. Loki came through in TNA Wrestling as TNA X Division Champion. He came with AAA, which was Christopher Daniels, or Team Triple X, Christopher Daniels, Eli Skipper, and Loki. So he can do the Lucha Libre style that Bandito does. He can also do other styles. This match, what a good match this was. Bandito is one of my favorite wrestlers right now. Low-key getting a victory. I give it 3 3/4. House of Glory Holy Grail, May 27th. We've seen this match. We've talked about this exact match in other companies. I want to say Warrior Wrestling, maybe somewhere else. 2 hosses that are athletic as hell. Jeff Cobb and Jonah. Just damn. Every time I've seen this match, it's been good. Either be a Warrior Wrestling or a House of Glory. Jonah got the victory here. I give it 3 3/4. Next up, we had from March 11th, Salvation, the House of Glory Tag Team titles on the line, along with the Ring of Honor World Tag titles. This was before Tony Khan purchased Ring of Honor, about the time that talk actually started happening. And this was kind of the old regime of Ring of Honor, letting the titles be defended other places so they were still being relevant, but yet Tony hasn't taken over yet. It was the Briscoes, who at the time were Ring of Honor champions, versus Aries and Penta Lazaro Mayedo, who was the House of Glory champions. And for both titles, the Briscoes walked out of Salvation in a 3 3/4 match as House of Glory World Tag Team Champions and Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. Their first defense of those House of Glory tag titles came 1 month later at Tribulations, whatever. House of Glory tag titles on the line. This was April 15th. The Briscoes versus the United Empire, Jeff Cobb and TJP. Holy snap, these teams went at it. Jeff Cobb, TJP, we know TJP is Lucha Libre inside out. He can do all the flying stuff. Jeff Cobb has got the power and the flying and the aerial. And we know the Briscoes are just fighters. So the Briscoes won this. Again, 3 3/4. From December 17th, Revelations, we had Kenta versus Loki. 2 Tier 1 strikers going at it. And this match ended in a no contest. Hopefully we have a rematch in 2023 of these two. Typically, again, no contest matches. It's like, okay, I need an end to these matches. Really, I was 3 3/4. If they would have got they would have got a victory on this. I'd went 4, but it was like 3 3. Next up, we had 2 more strikers going at it at October's 29th show of Exodus. We had Shinsuke Taki, Shingo Taka, yeah, versus Loki. Shingo from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Again, now some of these names today. Shingo versus Loki. 2 strikers going at it. Just a hell of a match. Shingo getting the victory. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, we had from Revelations, the House of Glory World Tag Titles on the line. We had the champions of the Briscoes, Jay and Mark Briscoe, versus the main event, Jay Lyon and Midas Black. And yes, you guessed it, 2 out of 3 falls. We had to get a gimmick on this. What a match! This is where the main event became House of Glory World Tag Champions in a 4-star match. Now, because that one was 2 out of 3 falls, we had to have a straight-up match before that, and that came at Holy Grail on May 27th. The Briscoes, Mark and Jay, versus the main event, Jay Lyon and Midas Black. The Briscoes got the victory there, 4 1/4 star. So the rematch was a 2 out of 3 falls. And then the very best match of House of Glory of 2022, on Exos on October 29th, House of Glory World Tag Team Champions, the Briscoes, going up against, if I say the best tag team in the world, some people may argue with that. Let's just go with this. Crowns Up, part of the United Empire, Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis, who since 2018, I've been watching them throughout the world wrestling. I think they're one of the best tag teams in the world. They going up against the Briscoes. In this day, the Briscoes were better. They won in a 4.5-star match. One of the best tag matches of 2022. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. House of Glory, the best matches of 2022, as done here by Robert Sports Show. Again, all my matches I personally watch, I personally rate. I don't have some editor watching them and what their opinion is or what this is. I personally watched every one of these matches that I talk about, and I personally star rated them 0 to 5. Those are the best matches for House of Glory. Stay tuned to Robert Sports Show as we finish up the rest of January with the showcase of the independents. As always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show, and don't just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader, sports channel content.